Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business News Afternoon Report for Wednesday, the 2nd of October, 2024. I'm Sean Aylmer. Every afternoon, we've got the 5 stories that happened today that you need to know about. Story number 1, the S&P ASX 200 closed down 0.1% today to 8,198 points. It dropped sharply on opening and then rebounded by lunchtime and then didn't do much. Energy stocks were among the biggest winners, with Woodside rising 3.5%. Santos was up nearly 3%. That was on the back of higher oil prices. The big miners were higher. Plenty of other stocks finished lower, including several tech companies, the retailers, and most of the banks. Sigma Healthcare was a top performer, up 8%. That follows the 25% rise yesterday after it provided concessions to the ACCC over its bid for Chemist Warehouse. Clearly, some investors think that deal is going to go ahead. Qantas's share price fell another 3% today after the 4% drop yesterday. That followed news that Qatar Airways is buying 25% of Virgin. Story number 2, in corporate news, outdoor gear retail group KMD Brands, which owns Kathmandu, has appointed Brett Scrimshaw as its new chief executive to replace Michael Daly. Its share price rose 1%. Gym operator Viva Leisure's share price was flat after posting a positive outlook for the December quarter on the back of expansion plans and a record number of member visits. And the battle for Namoi cotton is all but over. Been going on for a while. Privately owned commodities trader Dreyfus has amassed more than 50% of the group after Namoi's directors sold their shares. Dreyfus has been in a battle with Olam Group to buy the cotton ginner. Olam bid 75 cents a share but was knocked back by the ACCC, which said asset sales might not be enough to allow the deal to go ahead. So Dreyfus just kept buying shares and looks like it's got control now. Story number 3, one of the longer-running bank fights is over after ANZ failed to overturn a ruling that said it breached disclosure laws during a $2.5 billion capital raising back in 2015. ANZ broke the laws which require companies to inform shareholders of events that may affect their share price. When it didn't tell investors, it had failed to raise the targeted $2.5 billion in the capital raising from institutional investors. The raising was $790 million short. It was underwritten by 3 investment banks, so they got the money. But days later, there was a retail investor raising. Last year, Justice Mark Mashinsky ruled that retail investors should have been told about the shortfall. ANZ appealed that finding and the $900,000 fine, but the full bench of the federal court has now dismissed the challenge. It isn't so much the money, it's the look that ain't so good. Story number 4, Samsung is laying off staff in Australia as its head office looks to cut costs. About 10% of the workforce could go in Southeast Asia, Australia and New Zealand, according to a report on Bloomberg. It's not clear how many people will lose their job in the local market, but Samsung has about 147,000 staff outside South Korea. Samsung shares have slid more than 20% this year as the world's largest maker of memory chips and smartphones struggles in key markets. It's fallen behind rival SK Hynix in the memory chips used for AI and has made little progress against Taiwan semiconductor manufacturing in the production of custom-made chips for outside customers. And finally, story number 5, Republican Vice Presidential candidate J.D. Vance outpointed his opponent, Democrat Tim Waltz, in the only debate between the two ahead of the US presidential election in less than 5 weeks' time. Consensus was that the 40-year-old had beaten the 60-year-old, who didn't really help himself by continually taking notes and wandering through answers. It was more civilised than the debates between the presidential candidates, although much of the debate was focused on Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. The debate covered immigration, abortion and foreign policy, and of note, Mr. Vance refused to concede that Donald Trump had lost the 2020 election. That's it for the afternoon report for Wednesday, the 2nd of October, 2024. Michael Thompson and I will be back tomorrow morning with the Thursday edition of Fear and Greed Business News. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your evening.